You've probably heard the empowered feminist line, "I am not defined by my relationship to men. As a woman, I am my own independent entity." I've got a quote here from Ariana Grande. "I do not belong to anyone but myself, and neither do you." What these women are saying is that men might approve of me, they might not, they might be attracted to me, they might not, but it doesn't matter because my value as a woman is not defined by men. I don't require the validation of a man to know that I'm high quality. It's an interesting thought. Can a woman define herself, her own value, her own quality without any reference to how she's perceived by men? Now let's flip it, because perhaps in response to this feminist empowerment stuff, a sort of male equivalent arose. Men who choose to consciously forego seeking relationships with women. They just focus on themselves and want to live a life of perpetual bachelorhood. Society might tell them, you need to take care of a woman. It's your obligation as a man to take care of a woman. You need to get married, you need to have children. But there are some men who are rejecting this and they don't want to provide for a woman. It's the same as the feminist line. They're saying, I don't need the approval of the other gender to validate my worth. When you think about it, it's actually a pretty radical notion because it's throwing away the idea that each gender is one half of an equation and declaring yourself to be full and complete as you are. You do not need validation from the opposite gender to affirm your quality, your worth as an individual. So an interesting idea, definitely, but is it true? Is the idea that women's worth is defined by men and men's worth is defined by women just a social convention that we need to overcome? Or, on the other hand, is it a biological reality that we need to face, accept, and integrate? Weighing in on this is Jordan Peterson, and I want to read a quote that he has. "If you're a woman who has trouble with men, or you're a man who has trouble with women, it's not the women and it's not the men. It's you." It's interesting stuff. And for me, I land somewhere in between. And I want to use this video to explain all of the nuance as to why that is. And also give my explanation for why it's actually different for men than it is for women. So by the end of this video, you should know to what degree you should define your worth as a man by the amount of validation that you're getting from women. So first off, socially speaking, I like the general thrust of the argument made by the feminists and their male equivalents to be self-defining, self-empowering. I think that taking responsibility for yourself is awesome. I think it encourages independence and autonomy, and it fits in well within an overall philosophy of individualism. It's a good thing because when you allow yourself to be defined by people other than yourself, that's when you become approval seeking. If you've got really low self-esteem, it's when you leave yourself vulnerable to manipulation and abuse. Low quality people will sense how desperate you are for their approval, and they're going to exploit that for their own selfish needs. The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand gives a fantastic explanation of the dangers of being a second-hander, somebody who lives through the opinion and the approval of other people, a second-hand experience. However, it's important to remember that even the Ayn Rand heroes, the ultimate individualists, were still not alone. They had a fraternity of like-minded individuals, people who understood and accepted each other. They supported each other. It was very social. The reason that that is so important is because human beings are not blank slates. As much as certain ideologies want to imagine human beings as though we're entirely malleable and we can be shaped by whatever social or cultural forces are in vogue at the moment, that perspective completely ignores the biological reality of the situation. The truth is that all of us are born with innate instincts and preferences that were positively selected for by evolution over hundreds of thousands of years. A high level of cultural programming may be able to repress these instincts, but it will never be able to completely remove them. Now, the reason I made the point about the Ayn Rand heroes, the ultimate individualists, still needing support from each other and like-minded individuals is because one of the most important instincts that human beings have are our social instincts. Human beings are social creatures. For the overwhelming majority of our existence, we lived as parts of tribes and small communities. Psychologically speaking, the environment that human beings adapted to in our evolution was not so much our physical environment, but our social environment. I hope that this makes sense, but just to put it plainly, if you wanted to survive as a human being back in the day, it was less about overcoming the physical obstacles in your environment and learning to navigate the social obstacles. That was the best chance you had to survive, to get in good with the group. Who you are your instincts, your emotions, your behaviors, your personality, all of that was shaped by evolution over the millions of social interactions that your ancestors had. And the most important social interactions of all are those involving courtship, reproduction. So this is not so much about natural selection, increasing your chances of surviving, but sexual selection, evolving to increase your chances of reproducing. The fact of the matter is that the gender differences that we see today, where men and women are so different in our mindsets, our beliefs, our behaviors, those are the result of evolutionary pressures of each gender responding to the preferences of the other gender. Why is it that men are so competitive? Why are we problem solvers? Why are we violent? It's because those are the characteristics that were attractive to women. Women are attracted to men who are highly capable, who can physically defend her, who can provide her with resources. Why is it that women spend so much time focused on looks, trying to look young and attractive? Well, it's because men respond to fertility cues. Evolution positively selected for women who focused on their appearance because those women had a better chance of successful reproduction. And so, given that it was women who were at the root cause of most of male behavior for hundreds of thousands of years, I am personally reluctant to say that this current male generation is some kind of biological exception. Biologically speaking, women have always been the judge of a man's desirability, and men would change and adapt to try and increase their desirability in the eyes of women. And just because the current dating market is a disaster and it's never been harder for the average guy to get a fair shake, that doesn't mean that these biological conditions have just magically disappeared. So this is where I'm sympathetic to Jordan Peterson's view. If you've got some woman who's constantly complaining about every man out there, they're all horrible, they're all pigs, the chances are that it's actually her that's the problem. It's just more likely. And of course, the same goes vice versa. If there's a guy who says every single woman out there is low quality and they don't recognize that I'm actually a really amazing high quality guy, they just can't see it. Chances are there is actually something wrong with him. He just can't see it. He's not aware. But then here's the thing, because this gets really complicated. It's all very well and good for Ariana Grande to say that she doesn't define herself by the validation that she gets from men, because she gets so much of it. All the guys that she meets probably think she's gorgeous and tell her. It's very different for a man. He's not going to be getting compliments every day. He's not going to get thousands of Tinder matches in a week. Social media, feminism, birth control, capitalist abundance, all of these factors have exacerbated hypergamy to the point now where the dating market is a real mess. Nice, regular, average guys can now be made to feel as though they're the ugliest men on the planet. Whereas their female equivalents, nice, regular, average women can suddenly feel as though they deserve like a male model or a CEO. There is so much validation flowing from men towards women and so little flowing back from women towards men. So to simply say, if women don't find you attractive, that's on you, that's your fault, that's too simplistic. It's just shaming men when the truth is the game is rigged. Average men never really had a fair shot, and so their lack of success isn't really a true reflection of their innate desirability. It's more a reflection of the environmental conditions that he finds himself in. So then what are you meant to do? Are you meant to continue defining your quality as a man by the validation that you get from women? Is it a sensible choice to continue to base your self-esteem on how women perceive you, even though the odds are so heavily stacked against you? I would say no, that is a recipe for disaster. You'll be experiencing a low self-esteem that really isn't warranted. If you let your lack of Tinder matches or the fact that that woman that you approached rejected you define your quality as a man, you're so quickly going to enter into depression. You just can't do it. It's not a sensible choice. But then you can't overcorrect either. You can't completely reject the notion that how women perceive you has any bearing on your quality as a man, because that perspective is so anti-scientific. It just fundamentally is against what your biology dictates. So what is the solution? How do we satisfy the biological requirements while also being cognizant of the social circumstances that we find ourselves in? What I advise is to stop caring about what women think about you and instead care about what one woman thinks about you. One high quality woman. All of those low quality women who are posting selfies on social media for attention, who match with you on Tinder but never reply and are always in the clubs just rejecting men left and right, stop caring about what those women think about you. It is beneath you as a high quality man to let the opinions of low quality women have any effect on you. What you need to do is to get into a relationship with one high quality woman, a woman who is kind, intelligent, feminine, caring, a woman who will make a fantastic partner and a really good mother. And yes, what she thinks about you, that matters. But once you've got her approval, you can let go of all of the other women. They don't matter. This is one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of male promiscuity, because by definition, it keeps you in the dating market. And those are circumstances where, as a man, you don't have that much power. In the dating market, your self-esteem is vulnerable to the ebbs and flows of young women who might be beautiful, very attractive, but they could be superficial, they could be naive, they could have insufficiently developed personalities, and their opinions really shouldn't be listened to with that much seriousness. As a man, your place of power is not in the dating market. Where you will feel in control is in a relationship with a genuinely high quality woman. A functional, healthy, long-term relationship with a quality woman whose opinion deserves to be respected and valued and listened to. In this way, you can flow with your biological impulses, which is telling you to take into account the opinions of the opposite gender, but in a context where you have control, where you can guarantee that you're being judged not by some superficial characteristics, by people whose opinions don't really matter, but by somebody who you respect on your genuine merits. That is a recipe for healthy self-esteem. And obviously, as a man, you don't want your entire self-esteem based on how your partner perceives you. It should also be about your personality, your work, your talents, your achievements, all of that stuff. A woman's approval can't be the only foundation of your self-esteem, but it can be a very welcome addition. So in conclusion, to have your self-esteem in part boosted by how one high-quality woman perceives you satisfies your biological requirements for that kind of feedback, but it also takes into account the social context in which we find ourselves. How much ambition should a high-quality man actually have? That's the topic of my latest video. In this video, I talk about the balance that you need to strike between achievement and celebration. I go into detail about the dangers of being too ambitious, as well as not being ambitious enough. I talk about the ways that our culture glorifies ambition, and why you need to be a little bit suspicious taking your cues from cultural role models, as well as talking about the unique link between ambition and the need for social approval. Lastly, I talk about my own personal ambition and the balance that I strike in my life between creation and achievement and enjoyment. If you're a man who's struggling to figure out exactly how ambitious you should be, I highly recommend this video. For every video that I post here on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on my Patreon page. That means that at the moment, you're only seeing half of the total content that I create. If you'd like access to the other half, then please go and sign up at my Patreon page. It's just a $5 a month subscription, and you'll get instant access to a whole bunch of exclusive content. It's a wonderful way to support the channel, and I would love to see you over there.